because sometimes you just got to send the 3-0. Well, this is the new CMMG MK3 Dissent in the boomer caliber. Boomer caliber is the 308, the one that just got business done forever until we went with the 5.56. All joking aside, got love for you, my boomers. Just that is the running joke, right? Everybody's been trying to bring back the 308 or a larger caliber for quite a few years now. Now, CMMG did send this slick little side folding 308 setup in here, but as you know, or if you don't know, now you will, nobody here gets a free pass. I do have a relationship with CMMG. I've been in their facility. They've had me out there. I'm friends with a couple of people there, but nobody gets a free pass, right? Not even my boys over at CMMG. Now, if you don't know what the Dissent line is, it's a very cool system that has no buffer tube in the back, so you can have this thing side folded, and even though it's a 16, it's a pretty good length overall, and yes, it will fire in the folded configuration. Now I got this thing in, I loaded those PMags with the 308, I got it out there and started to go to work with it. And there was a few things I noticed right off the bat, and one of which is being that this thing is quite heavy, right? Because it's a 308. Anytime you step into that 30 cal round, you're gonna have a little bit more weight to it. That's why I kept it kind of slick, but in this configuration without the optics, she comes in at a thick 8.5 pounds. And again, that is without lights or optics or anything else attached to it. And I guess if 8.5 pounds is too heavy for you, grow stronger. I will say though, the recoil is not bad at all, especially since it has a little bit more cushion for the pushing in the way of that weight. And it does have an adjustable gas block. So you can kind of tune this thing into your ammo or whether you're running a suppressor or not and get it running pretty soft. But one thing you are gonna have to take into account is if you swap magazine types or ammunition types, you may have to adjust your gas setting a little bit. And I did experience that out on the range. I also noticed that if I went to Lancer mags instead of the 2 PMags that this thing comes with, that it wanted a little bit more gas. So it ran right out of the box on the PMags, but when I went to use the Lancer translucent magazines, I needed 2 more levels of gas in the positive direction. I needed more gas flowing through the system to get that last round bolt lock. So again, if you change ammo or even if you change magazine types and you've got an adjustable gas block and it's set to the low end, you might need to open her up a little bit. However, since I picked up a couple of extra PMags from Brownells and of course that PMC 308, that is mostly what I ran out there, and that's pretty much how I had my gas settings for the whole time, except for when I put the suppressor on there, and then I did have to make an adjustment on that as well. And if you guys are interested in anything you see here today or what we're talking about, I'll have a build list link down below so you can check things out and do all of your own research. And if you're watching this on TV, I'll put a QR code up here so you can scan that while you're watching, kind of scroll through and check things out. Now for my AK fans out there, or anybody who likes a more forward kind of charging design, this is a forward charging setup, which you can have either on the left or right side. It is swappable, so lefty righty, you do get some love on this one, so you can stop complaining about being left-handed. The trigger in here, I do have to say, is extremely nice. It is a drop-in style trigger design, and CMMG has been putting nicer triggers in their stuff for probably the past 2 years, and I'm a huge fan of that because a trigger can make a big difference out there on the range. And we will get more into the actual pull weight of that thing when we take a good look up close and put it on the gauge. Now, getting to know this thing out on the range, I did have to make some adjustments, both in the gas since I was using different types of ammo, and how I actually ran the thing since it has a much different size factor than a traditional AR-15. One of the things I noticed right away doing empty gun reloads was placement of my thumb. So since this has a much larger magazine than a traditional 5.56, you have to have your thumb much further back. So when I went to replace a mag, I was often hitting right here in front. And that just kind of goes to show that you need to do a little bit of work and kind of familiarize yourself anytime you get something new. But after I set up a couple drills with some empty gun reloads, I got settled right in and it sped up quite a bit. You can get this thing pretty dialed into you as far as the stock goes because you have adjustable comb height right there. You got a few positions and it obviously is adjustable for length of pull. It is a little weird back here though, because you have a button on each side right here, which you have to depress, which means you kind of have to almost work it with your pinky or drag the stock. There's really no way to do it one-handed comfortably or normally if you're used to like a traditional stock, collapsible stock design. A little bit interesting. The other thing that I did notice here is when you are adjusted all the way out, you do get a little bit of movement in that. Now I'm cranking on this pretty good, but you can see a little bit of wobble there, and that has to do with the fact that that's just a lot of polymer which you get adjusted all the way out. I did notice on the range that that gave you a little bit more wobble as far as your red dot on target, but also it almost seemed like it soaked up a little bit of the recoil. So it's kind of like a little give and take right there. You also get an ambidextrous safety and an ambidextrous magazine from CMMG, and their controls are generally pretty nice. Now, as far as the safety selector, I did notice one thing. Since this is kind of a thicker lower receiver design, I noticed that the safety was a little bit thin because it's right so close to the takedown pin, and I found myself dragging my thumb on that from time to time. So I think it could benefit from a little bit of a thicker, at least primary sided safety selector. But other than that, all of the controls seem to be right where you wanted them and about the right size. Now, this is a direct impingement system, but it has a dual recoil spring design, very reminiscent of like the AR-18 or the AR-180. That style design has been around for a very long time and is pretty well proven. The receiver set is tight, and I mean super tight, which is a good thing because that solid feel gives confidence. Now, once I got this thing gassed where I wanted it, whether I was suppressed or unsuppressed, she ran like an absolute champ without issue. I ran mostly PMC here. I did run some PPU, and I ran a little bit of, I think it was Igman imported 308, which is definitely not my favorite, and I've had some problems with that stuff, especially in 5.56, but it seemed to run reliably in this 308. I do have to apologize for not having the footage with a suppressor on it. My memory card got full, so unfortunately I can't show you that, but you do have to make a little bit of an adjustment depending on what type of can you are running. If you're running a high flow, not as bad. If you're running a traditional style can, you might have to tune the gas down just slightly. But overall, the range experience here was solid. Now, as far as some of those basic specs go here, there are several different models. This one specifically has a 16.1-inch barrel, obviously chambered in 308. It's 4140 chromoly, 1 in 10 twist rate with a nitride finish, capped off with a CMMG muzzle brake. And that muzzle brake is angry. You will know it has a muzzle brake and that you are firing 308. The upper and the lower are 7075 T6 aluminum with an integral trigger guard. This version has a 15-inch CMMG rail, but there are several other barrel lengths and rail options out there. You're gonna have plenty of M-LOK, plenty of venting. It has CMMG's in-house furniture, which is gonna get the job done. The stock has all that adjustment. The pistol grip has that lockable compartment on the bottom for all of your range, skill, and treat needs. However, I couldn't get a full meat stick from my people over at PHORM jammed up in there, but you know, I guess range snack problems, right? But if you guys are interested in supplements or anything, I've been using some PHORM stuff for a few months now. I'm actually getting some pretty good personal gains off that. So if you're into any of that, I'll leave a link for that stuff down below. Another thing that stood out here on this Dissent was the machine work and the smoothness and the quality feel overall. Now, having tested a bunch of different CMMG stuff, that's one thing I will say is their designs usually come out very well done. The machine work is very well executed, and it seems that their actions are just super smooth compared to a great many other things out there in the market. Now, before we get up close and put this trigger on the gauge, I know some of you need that full spec sheet, so here you go. All right, so I have this broke down so I can give you guys kind of a really good idea of the system in here. So this is your bolt. Obviously, that's the front of it, that's the back, and this is your recoil assembly right here. So instead of a traditional AR lower design, something like this right here, where you have the buffer tube and the buffer spring in here, and the bolt goes back in here, sends it back forward and loads. Everything in this is captured in the initial upper receiver section, so you don't have to worry about a buffer or a buffer tube. Pretty cool design, stuff like this, like I said, been around for a very long time and fairly well proven, and it just slides right in and out. But we will go ahead and do some trigger pulls right here. Give you guys an idea, there is like no take up, 100% wall. Take that safety off, and it's just a break right there. Very positive and tactile reset. Good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead, put this on the gauge, and we are going to see what it comes out at. I wanna say it's probably 3.5 to 4 pounds, could be wrong. Get set up. I'm gonna pull from right about here. That's where I'd put my finger. Oh, 2 pounds and 15 ounces. So not bad at all. Reset that trigger. Let's get ready. Do it again. 2 pounds, 3 pounds and 4 ounces on that one. So we'll do 3 here like I try to do on everything, because it could be, so I messed up. That little wheel started rolling up on the trigger. So try to pull from the same place each time. And that one was 2 pounds and 11 ounces. So obviously, if you don't know, the higher or lower you pull on the trigger gauge, you will get a different reading. So the lower you go, right, if you're way down here, 1 pound, 15 ounces. And then if you pull from way up here, right, you're gonna jump up to 5 pounds and 12 ounces. So always work the leverage, get low on that trigger, and just maximize the efficiency of the operation. And then just taking a good solid look at that trigger shoe, that thing is just sexy with that kind of fang, slightly curved design. And it just feels really good. So there's some edges in there. Just feels real solid. It's probably nitride coated right there. So overall, well done. CMMG has been putting far better triggers in their stuff than most other people out there these days. And for those of you that are curious for your factory maintenance, your takedown and cleaning, obviously you just pop the 2 pins like any other AR design, and then literally your bolt and recoil assembly slides right in and out. It really does not get much easier than that. Now for $22.99 Galactic Notes, it's actually a pretty cool setup. Who's it for? Anybody who wants it, right? Some people are gonna want this as a main squeeze, some people will use it as a safe queen, and some people will use it as just an intermediate, have fun at the range once in a while thing. And quite honestly, I don't care what you spend your money on, as long as you're having a good time and learning a little something out there on the range. And let's just face it, everybody needs a little 308 in their life. Just remember, when you send them lovingly. As far as how I outfitted it, you can see it's pretty slick and smooth because she's 8.5 pounds without anything. So I just popped this right on red dot on there. It's actually turning out to be pretty cool because it comes with this quick release lower 1/3 mount. I've been using it a few times recently on a couple of different reviews, and I kind of like the things, especially for their price point. And I just wanted to give a different red dot a try for once, because I'm usually running aim points or Trigicons or Holosuns. So I wanted to try something just a little bit different. It's a little bit more affordable, and so far this one's been pretty solid. And if you're interested in taking a look at that, I'll have it at the build list link down below. Now, since nobody gets a free pass, is there anything I would change on the Mark III Dissent and 308? Because overall it ran good, it feels good, the machine work is awesome, so really cool setup. But first, that safety selector, like I said, just because of the size of that takedown right there, your thumb just grinds on it when you go to activate that. So I think if there was a little bit more meat here, it would be a little bit easier to not get your thumb stuck on the takedown pin before it hits the safety selector. Or maybe that's me, kind of nitpicking at that point. The only other thing is I would like to see that stock beefed up, just because when it's extended all the way out, if you're a tall giraffe kind of guy like me, and yeah, I'm kind of wearing giraffe looking camo right here, you do get a little bit of that flex in there. It's not terrible. Some AK stocks do the same thing, but it's just one of those things where once you notice it, it's kind of in your head. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference out there. I think even if you were using it as probably a more precision-based rifle, by the time that flex happened, that round's already gone, so I don't think it's going to matter. Like I said, you just might see a little bit more wobble in your dot or your reticle if you're using something magnified. So that's really what I got when it comes to issues or changes. Now make sure you get subbed up to the channel. Keep doing it on the range. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I will see you all on the next one.